Hello there everybody, this is Drone and I'm here to tell you about my top 10 favorite gym leaders in Pokemon. Now I know that some of these people aren't everyone's favorites. I do have a couple rules here to go over as well. Number 1, these gym leaders are the ones that appear in the game. And number 2, some referencing is fine as long as they appeared in both media plugs that I mentioned. Like I've said before, this is my opinion and I would love for you guys to tell me who your favorites are. So, let's get this started. Number 10 on my list is Jasmine. Now, Jasmine is easily one of my favorite gym leaders because she uses one of my favorite types. Now, the other thing about her is I love her personality. She is that shy, quiet character that's just kind of to herself. And I love those characters regardless of the game I'm playing. Jasmine is definitely one of those adorable characters that is very memorable because first off, she is that adorable character, and secondly is because she definitely helps with storyline progression. Number 9, Falkner. Now, Falkner is easily one of my favorite gym leaders because he uses the flying type. Though this isn't one of my absolute favorites, this is still a great type, and on top of that, he has a lot of different things going for him. First off, if you go by the manga, he's a gym leader and a police officer. I know that that doesn't sound very cool, but I personally enjoy it. He kind of juggles these two jobs, and on top of that, his signature Pokemon, which this is a crying shame, but isn't even referenced in the games. His signature Pokemon is Skarmory. And Skarmory is an absolutely amazing Pokemon once you get down to stats and typing. Number 8 on this list is Maylene. She's another one of these quiet, shy kind of characters that's just absolutely adorable. And she, once again, uses one of my favorite types, the fighting type. Now, Maylene is a little bit different to me than Jasmine because I found her just an amazing hurdle to try to get past. I mean, she starts out the battle, and once you're at the end of it, you're having to fight her Lucario. And as you guys remember, she's not the only gym leader with Lucario. But I'll go ahead and move on for now. Number 7 is Norman. Norman's a fantastic gym leader that has one of the most memorable facts about him. To me anyway, and that is the fact that he is actually the player's father. And for the series, that's just a phenomenal fact. Norman is amazing. And on top of that, whenever you get down to his Pokemon, it gets even better. Because he's a normal type trainer, and as we know from Whitney, they can be overly destructive. Him, on the other hand, he's even worse than Whitney. He's the 5th gym leader in his region, and on top of that, he uses the only Pokemon that you can catch in the game that has close to legendary stats that isn't a legendary. In fact, he uses 2 of them, Slaking. Now, Slaking, as you all know, is also a pretty phenomenal Pokemon and just made it shy of being in my top 10. So I'll go ahead and move on. Number 6, Clay. I love this gym leader. Just everything about him. His clothing, his mannerisms, everything about him. He's overly hilarious. He's just phenomenal. He's like a current day cowboy. Not to mention, once again bringing up teams, his team is phenomenal, leading out with some decent Pokemon, but then coming into Excadrill. Now, Excadrill is a monster. He is overly defensive, high attack power, and can sweep a lot of things. Not to mention, though his typing isn't that great, it is still phenomenal. I'll go ahead and move on though, because I still have a few people to cover. Number 5 on my list, Alessa. Alessa is one of my favorite gym leaders because she is the first real sex symbol in Pokemon. And I know you guys are like, oh, come on now, she's not a sex symbol. But then I want you to think about this. She's a supermodel. Thought I'd let that sit for a minute. Because, as you all know, we do look at supermodels as kind of a sex symbol. Secondly, she uses one of my absolute favorite types of Pokemon. She uses the electric type. Her team is ridiculous. She uses the Pokemon Zebstrika and Emolga, and together, using Volt Switch was just ridiculous. Number 4 on my list, Flannery. Flannery is one of my favorite gym leaders just because of her characteristics. Yeah, I know. First off, she's a liar. Yeah, I went there. She is a liar, and a habitual one at that. She tells everyone the same thing, and she's really not the gym leader. Yeah, I know, big shock there. For those of you who don't know, she's not actually a gym leader, but she's going on the list anyway. The actual 4th gym leader of the Hoenn region is her grandfather, who never even makes an appearance in any of the games. But for her taking his place, she was phenomenal. Well, I could go on for a little bit about Flannery, so I'm going to go ahead and move on to number 3. Number 3 is Ramos. This is the first person I'm going to be talking about from X and Y, so yeah. He is almost like the word of wisdom in the game. He's just a nice old man that whenever you walk up to him and start fighting him, he's like, "Hello there, why don't you have a seat and have some tea with me?" And you're like, "Well, this is not exactly what I expected." He's like, "Yeah, well, that's alright. After we have our tea, we can have our Pokemon battle, and my grass-type Pokemon can crush you." Well, that came out of nowhere, thanks. But yeah, I mean, to be honest with you, he is phenomenal. And like I said, if you're not ready for his grass Pokemon, they will destroy you. Number 2 on the list is Classic, Misty. Now, Misty is one of my favorite gym leaders simply because she uses the water type. And she uses it well. Now, Misty, depending on the game that you're looking at, is also kind of a sex symbol because she's also a beauty queen, like her sisters before her. Of course, her sisters only really appear in the manga and the anime. They don't have much of an appearance in the game. And for her being who she is, I love it. Now, I'm going to go ahead and go over my honorable mentions real quick and give you some information on why they could have made the list but fell just short. Now, my first honorable mention here is Blaine. Now, I have a couple reasons for this, and that is that Blaine is one of the biggest hurdles in the first generation, and on top of that, if you're talking about the manga, he is an amazing character. First off, he's an ex-Team Rocket scientist that helped clone Mewtwo. Well, see, there was a lot of failed clones of Mew, and they finally realized that, hey, maybe if we have a second catalyst, we can clone this correctly. So they took Blaine's DNA and spliced it with Mew's to make Mewtwo. So he's kind of like the brother of Mewtwo. And I love that aspect about him. Next up on the list, next up is Karina. She's another honorable mention. Now, Karina fell a little bit short just because I love Maylene that much more. They could have taken the same slot if I wanted them to, but I just thought that Maylene deserved it a little bit more. Now, Karina's cool because she's one of those trainers that shows up multiple times throughout the series, or throughout the games, and she is a pretty big hurdle. I mean, the first time you fight her, she has 2 Lucarios, then you fight her again and she's using fucking Hawlucha, which, if you guys remember from my other video, how much I hate that fucking Pokemon. But yeah, I mean, she is a great trainer. But time to go ahead and move on to my number 1. Number 1 on the list is the Pokemon trainer Green. Now, some of you guys might actually know this trainer is blue, and I'm using Green because it is his original name from Japan. Now, Green is a phenomenal trainer. First off, he was the biggest hurdle throughout the entire first generation. He was your rival there every step of the way, trying to hinder your progress. And I love it. Second part is that after you finish the first generation of games, we had the second gen come out, and everyone was like, oh my god, yay, the second gen, and you played through the entire game thinking that you weren't going to have to see him again. And you were like, okay, well, Silver's okay, but, you know, I miss Green, because Green was that much better at just pissing you off, to be honest. But then you beat the gym leaders, and you have to find your way to the top of Mount Silver, and you're doing this, and you're doing that, and you're like, okay, I had one more gym leader to fight. You walk into Viridian City's gym, and there he is. green, waiting for you, waiting once again to hinder your progress and just make you feel horrible. But he wasn't that person in this game. No, instead, he tells you that he used to be this mean and arrogant person and that he's learned a lot from what he's been through. And I just love him for that. He learned. Well, guys, once again, thank you for watching. Please leave a like and a sub. As always, the links are in the description. This is Drone, signing off.